Deep in the Bavarian countryside, about an hour north of Munich, lies the shell of a remote farmstead. It's a place with a dark, chilling history, a place where an entire family was brutally wiped out in a single night. This is the story of Hinterkaifeck, one of Germany's most infamous and baffling unsolved mysteries. Our story begins in late March 1922. The Gruber family lived at Hinterkaifeck, a small, isolated farm. The family consisted of the farmer, Andreas Gruber, his wife Cäzilia, their widowed daughter Carl Gabriel, and her two young children, Cäzilia and Joseph. Also living with them was the new maid, Maria Baumgartner. It was a household already touched by scandal and whispers in the local village. Andreas was known to be a difficult, abusive man, and there were persistent rumors of an incestuous relationship with his daughter Victoria. But in the days leading up to the tragedy, something far more sinister was unfolding. The family started experiencing a series of strange and unsettling events. Andreas told neighbors he'd found a set of footprints in the fresh snow, leading from the dense woods directly to the farmhouse, but none leading back. He then heard footsteps and noises coming from the attic, but when he searched, he found nothing. A few days later, a set of house keys went missing. Then, an unfamiliar newspaper from Munich mysteriously appeared on the property. No one in the family had bought it, and no one knew how it got there. It was clear someone had been lurking on their property, perhaps even living in their home, completely undetected. The previous maid had actually quit her job 6 months earlier, claiming the house was haunted. She'd heard voices and footsteps and felt a constant, unnerving presence. The Grubers, however, stayed put. Andreas, despite his concerns, refused to seek help from the police or his neighbors. It was a decision that would prove fatal. On the evening of March 31, 1922, the strange occurrences culminated in unimaginable horror. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had only arrived that very afternoon, just hours before she would meet her end. The exact sequence of events that night is a matter of speculation, but investigators have pieced together a terrifying picture. It's believed the killer, or killers, lured the family members into the barn one by one. First went Victoria, then her mother Cazilia, followed by her father Andreas, and finally, young 7-year-old Cazilia. Inside the barn, each one was struck down with a mattock, a type of pickaxe-like farming tool. But the horror didn't stop there. The killer then moved from the barn into the main house. There, they entered the bedroom of the maid, Maria Baumgartner, and murdered her in her sleep. Finally, they went to the nursery, where 2-year-old Joseph lay in his cot, and ended his life as well. The entire family, 6 people spanning 3 generations, had been systematically and brutally annihilated. What makes this case even more disturbing is what happened next. For the next 4 days, life on the farm appeared to continue almost as normal. Smoke was seen rising from the chimney, the cattle were fed, and meals were eaten in the kitchen. The killer, it seems, remained at Hinterkaifeck after committing the murders, living alongside the bodies of his victims, tending to the animals, and eating the family's food. It's a chilling detail that speaks to a level of cold-blooded composure that is almost beyond comprehension. The outside world only became suspicious when little Cazilia failed to show up for school for several days, and the family missed their Sunday church service. On April 4th, a group of neighbors, led by a man named Lawrence Schlittenbower, decided to investigate. They walked to the isolated farm, calling out for the Grubers but received no answer. The farm was eerily silent. The front door was locked, so they made their way to the barn. And it was there that they made the gruesome discovery. The bodies of Andreas, Cazilia, Victoria, and her daughter lay partially covered in hay, victims of a brutal attack. The search party then entered the house, where they found the bodies of the maid and little Joseph in their beds. The police were immediately called, and one of Germany's largest murder investigations began. The crime scene was a mess. Before professional investigators from Munich could arrive, neighbors and villagers had trampled all over the farm, moving bodies and disturbing potential evidence. It was a catastrophic failure from the start. Autopsies were conducted right there in the barn. The coroner determined that the victims had likely been ambushed. Young Cazilia had survived the initial attack for several hours, lying next to the bodies of her mother and grandparents, and had torn out clumps of her own hair in terror before she finally succumbed to her injuries. The weapon, the mattock, was later found hidden in the attic. The investigation was extensive. More than 100 suspects were interviewed over the years, but no one was ever charged. The initial theory focused on robbery, But a large sum of money was found untouched in the house, which seemed to rule it out. So, if not robbery, what was the motive? Suspicion quickly fell on Lawrence Schlittenbower, the neighbor who had led the search party. He had a complicated history with the Grubers. He had an affair with Victoria, and was widely believed to be the biological father of her son, Joseph. They had a contentious relationship, and some thought he might have snapped. His behavior at the crime scene was also odd. He seemed to know his way around and disturb the bodies without hesitation. He remained a prime suspect for years, but there was never enough evidence to convict him. Another theory pointed towards Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, who was officially listed as killed in action in France during World War I. However, his body was never recovered. This led to speculation that he might have survived the war, returned to find his wife had a child with another man, and committed the murders in a jealous rage. Some former comrades even claimed to have seen him after the war. But again, these were just rumors, with no concrete proof. Other theories ranged from wandering vagrants to a politically motivated attack, but each lead turned into a dead end. The police even consulted clairvoyants in a desperate attempt to find answers, sending the skulls of the victims to Munich for paranormal examination. Nothing came of it. Years turned into decades, and the Hinterkaifeck case grew colder. The farm was eventually demolished in 1923, just a year after the murders, erasing the physical location of the crime. All that remains today is a small memorial shrine. The files were officially closed and reopened multiple times. Most recently in 2007, when a police academy class re-examined the evidence with modern techniques. They came to a conclusion, but in order to respect the living relatives of their primary suspect, they chose not to publicly name them. So, while they believe they know who did it, the case officially remains unsolved. What happened at Hinterkaifeck on that cold night in 1922? Was it a crime of passion by a spurned lover? A vengeful act by a husband returned from the dead? Or was it the work of a random, unknown assailant who stalked the family from the woods? The footprints in the snow, the keys, the newspaper, the noises in the attic, it all paints a picture of a calculated, patient predator who embedded himself into the family's life before striking. The fact that he stayed on the farm for days afterwards adds another layer of pure, cold terror. The Hinterkaifeck murders have become a part of dark German folklore, a cautionary tale whispered in the Bavarian countryside. 100 years have passed, and we are no closer to a definitive answer. The silence of that farmstead echoes through time, holding its secrets close, leaving us with a haunting and permanent question mark. Who was the man in the woods? And why did he do it? We will likely never know. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the unknown. See you next time.